Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Denise, and in today's video we're going to be talking about polymer clay. I've been getting some questions about what the processes are and different types of clay and what they're good for, so I thought I'd answer those today. If you have any other comments after this video or any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will get those answered for you. Also remember to subscribe to the channel and hit your little bell notification so that you can be notified of the next videos coming out. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk clay. So for those of you who don't know, polymer clay is actually plastic. So it's like the PVC pipes and things like that. So it's a plastic. It is non-toxic. They don't recommend you using it for food items like making bowls or plates, but you can certainly add them onto outside of bowls and plates, serving dishes, things like that, so that you can, make something very pretty. Polymer clay can also be painted after it's baked with just acrylic paints. And a lot of people do that. They make their creations with just the plain white clays and then they will paint it afterwards. So that's an option. If you don't want to buy a lot of polymer clay colors and you have a lot of acrylic paints, you can just buy the white, make your creation and then paint it however you'd like to. You do want to paint it after it's baked, so don't forget that part. You can also use chalk on polymer clay and highly pigmented powders. Even eyeshadows you can use. If they're really highly pigmented, you can actually use those on your polymer clay. One to add into the clay to add a different, like a shimmer or a different type of color, or afterwards to add some depth to your project. You only want to use sealants for polymer clay that are for polymer clay. You don't ever want to use like Mod Podge or fingernail polish. They tend to melt the clay. My personal preference is actually this Minwax polyacrylic protective finish. It's a water-based, so it cleans up nicely out of your brushes. It is a little more cost-effective than buying like the Sculpey gloss and things like that. So that is what I use on my projects. They do have a spray formula, but I don't really have a place that I can spray my projects, so I just use the paintbrush and the liquid. So you do not have to seal your clay. That is something that is a personal preference. If you want your project to shine, you actually can start at a really, I believe it would be around an 800 grit sandpaper, and you want to go up to 1600. And you're just going to sand and clean off and sand and clean off, and then you're going to be buffing it. And it really does make a nice shine. A lot of crafters, jewelry makers that use polymer clay, that's actually how they do it. They don't seal it with anything. They just sand it and buff it. And it does turn out very pretty. So it's a completely personal choice. The reason that I use sealants on mine is because a lot of times I've put a lot of pieces together, and even though I've never had anything come apart exactly, I feel like that's just an extra measure to stick everything together at the end. So that is why I use that. When you get your clay, you want to condition it, and I touched on this a little bit on the other in the other video. But conditioning just means you're getting it where it's workable. Okay, so you're getting it where it's pliable and soft, and you can make something out of it. There are some clays, and we will go over this in just a second, that are much harder than others, but they're also used for something specific. So in general, I use Sculpey 3, Sculpey Primo for all of my stuff. And that is just hand. You can just work it in your hands like you do Play-Doh, and it works just fine. Sometimes you get a drier batch clay softener, and you can use that, and you can also use baby oil. I'm going to give you kind of a warning here. You don't want to use a lot. It doesn't take a lot. So like maybe 3 drops for a whole block of clay if it's not really horribly dry. And the way I condition my clay when it's a little drier is I actually break it up into smaller pieces. I put my whatever I chose to condition it with, whether it's the Sculpey clay conditioner or baby oil, and I mush it up as much as I can, and then I actually put it in a plastic bag and seal it up, and I let it set for a day or until I'm ready to come back for it, just so it has a chance to regain some moisture. Then it normally works just fine. It's still a little bit hard to get incorporated. The other way you can condition your clay and soften it up a little bit is you can actually add softer clay. Sculpey Original White is super, super soft, and you can actually use that, and I do that quite a bit, to soften other colors of clay. You just have to know that it's going to lighten up the clay a little bit, the color of the clay. Now the opposite end of the spectrum is your clay is too moist. Sometimes this comes right out of the package and it's just too moist. It almost feels tacky, gummy, or you quite possibly could have added too much of your clay conditioner or your baby oil. But all is not lost, I promise. It's called leaching, and what you do is you just take a paper towel and you put your clay on the paper towel and you let it sit there, and the paper towel will pull out the extra moisture that's in the clay. So you don't have to throw it away, you don't have to scrap the whole project. You may have to work with it a little bit more just to get it back. You may have to leach it a couple of times, but it's fine. It will pull the moisture out, and you can still use the clay. And I have had to do that before. When I first started, I added way too much clay softener one time, and basically my hands were just covered in clay. It was quite a mess, but you can save it. Let's talk about baking. So when you bake your clay, you want to follow your package directions. Because everybody's oven is different, you want to test a piece of your clay in your oven. I just rolled out a piece of sample clay and I put it in the oven, and I actually started baking it at the same temperature but less time. And you want to find out how your oven works with your clay. Mine, optimal 275 for 30 minutes. It doesn't burn, no discoloration, anything like that. So I highly suggest that when you start doing this, just make a sample. It can be out of your scrap clay, it can be out of color that you bought and decided you don't like, whatever you want to do. Find out where your temperature is good on. You do not, however, ever want to bake it in a microwave. The reason being is because of the way microwaves cook. And you want to just make sure that when you've baked your project, you pull it out and you let it cool completely. And at that point in time, you can paint it, you can varnish it, you can sand it and buff it. It'll be kind of pliable when you bring it out. As it cools, it will get harder. And at that time, after you've done everything, you can add your magnet to the back, you can add it to a clip, whatever you're going to do with it, and you'll be all done. So it's really nice. So let's talk real quick about the different types of clay. There's different brands out there. Everybody has their favorite, and I'm good with that. Brand that you buy has a different use. And for me, I love Sculpey 3, the Primo, Souffle, the Original. Those are my favorites to work with. I have always had really great luck with the projects that I'm working on. I've been able to make figurines and ornaments and all sorts of stuff with it and never had a problem with it. And your own personal preference, I think, comes into play a lot with this and what you're planning on doing with your clay. Sculpey Original, they don't have any colors except for white and tan, and they are really, really soft. I use those a lot for texturizing. If you saw my last video when I put the clouds, the magnet, the cherry tree blossom magnet, that was actually Sculpey Original White, and it's because it's really soft. It takes great textures. It's just a really nice thing to have. It also can help soften up your other clays if you need that. So I have that. I have a ton of colors in Sculpey 3. That is one of the reasons that I really like that brand. Is tons of colors, and I find it very easy to work with. Now Sculpey Souffle is a different type of clay, and it is super, super soft. But again, I really enjoy that because I can use textures. So if you're making an ice cream cone, you can get great texture out of the souffle because it's very soft, and you can get that ice cream look for your ice cream. I think that with Sculpey brand, there's a lot of versatility, and you need to play with it. The next really popular one is called Fimo, and that's a medium firm one. Now, this clay is wonderful, wonderful for making canes. It's not super hard to work with. It takes a little bit more to condition it because it is harder even right out of the package. And actually, I suggest that you do probably have some type of pasta machine, or you use a rolling pin, something, because it is a little tougher. But once it gets pliable, it's wonderful. I know a lot of people use that for canes for sure. They make jewelry out of it. They make sculptures out of it. It holds its form. If you're doing a really intricate sculpture, it holds its form. So next one is called Kato, and it is really hard. The instructions are you take the brick and you beat it with a mallet first. I don't think that that would be a good clay to work with if you have any problems with your hands at all, any arthritis or any kind of problem with your hands. Just too hard. It is super popular with sculpture artists. You can really get some details on this stuff. So the other problem that I have experienced with the Kato clay is that it smells like one of those plastic shower curtains, and that's not anybody's favorite smell. So if you're going to try it, I suggest one, you have a rubber mallet that you can beat it with, and also that you're near a window if you're kind of sensitive to those smells. However, if you are going to make jewelry, this is probably one of the best clays you can make jewelry out of because it doesn't break. So if you're going to do that with clay, then this is the one that you probably should go with. Another kind, it's called Cernet. I have not had great experience with this one. It tends to be way too soft for me to work with. It has this great like translucent quality that you can add mermaid scales and fish and things like that. It's got a great quality to it. I personally just don't like it because it's way too soft for me. So Michaels has a brand of their own, and it's called Craft Smart. It's very cost effective, which is wonderful. And if you're just starting out and you're not really sure if you really want to get into it, this would be a very cost effective way to do it. It is a medium soft texture. It is similar to Sculpey 3. Problem with it is it dries out quickly. Like it almost air dries, which this is all supposed to be baking. So none of these things are supposed to air dry. You can leave a clump of clay or your project out and it shouldn't dry out. For playing around and seeing what you like, and if you don't like it, I think it's a good idea. I think it's great for kids because the kiddos can get in there. It's cost effective, which I'm all about the cost effective with the kiddos because I want them to experience things and I want them to do crafts, but we don't want to spend a ton of money on something that they may not use or like. That is about it. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer, please let me know. Just comment down below and I will get back to you. Possibly if a lot of people are still asking a lot of questions, I can do another video maybe more in depth with some other things. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was informative and that you learned something, and we will see you next time. Please remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know next time when a video comes out. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day.